Hey guys, it's Sean. I was about to do this cab and realized I haven't done a video showing you guys my technique while using a drop stick. I have one where I'm using my hands. That's what I used to do until a couple years ago. I switched and I haven't been as good about posting videos lately, so I wanted to go ahead and just show you my technique, which is a lot more efficient, and you can save your hands some pain and also finish your cabs quicker. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do it. So this is a Tahoma Agate from Washington, and it's a very hard material like most agates and jaspers. So what I do is I start with an 80 hex wheel. This is a wheel made by Diamond Pacific. It's a little more aggressive than your regular 80, so it cuts your work time down a lot. And I already have a video about how to put your stone on the dop stick. I will go ahead and link that to this video so you can check it out. I would recommend looking at that before you get started with dopping. And now I will go ahead and get started doing my initial shaping on the 80 hex wheel and just show you how I'm holding the dop stick and kind of what my process is for that. So you can see I'm holding the dop stick with my right hand and then supporting the stone with my left and kind of guiding it. I also like to work from the back of the stone sometimes, so here I'm actually just holding the stone. It's easier for me to see the shape of the final cab from the back because sometimes there's overhanging material, and it's more effective, I think, to grind that away from the back. And then I always do the girdle first. So here I am just kind of doing a rounded rectangle, and I am trying to create a girdle that is angled inward. I think it's 12 or 13 degrees to facilitate bezel setting. So if it's just straight up and down, it makes it hard to hold the stone in a setting by tension when you push your bezel in using either a hammer setting technique or a bezel pusher. And even though I work from the back of the stone a lot to shape it, I also like to work from the top and the side, just to touch up from all angles, especially on the initial shaping of it. And once we have the girdle and the initial shape of the stone to a place where we like it, then we're going to work on the dome. And you want to work low on the wheel, but right now what I'm doing is just setting the height of the girdle first. So without having to worry too much about the smoothness of the dome or the consistency of the dome, I am just grinding the top of it down because I know I want my girdle a specific height, and then I will pay more attention to the perfection of a smooth dome. And one thing you can do that I'm doing right here is use the very edge of the wheel as a really aggressive technique to kind of grind quicker and more aggressively into the stone when you know you're just trying to take off a lot of material. Often that spot on the wheel, the very edges, might not be as worn, and you can really kind of utilize that to cut your work time down and really grind out a lot of material quickly. Here we see that things don't always go as planned. Even though I really like dop sticks, they still sometimes can pop off. So back into the dop pot we go to re-adhere our stone, and while you wait for that, you can give your little pets some loving or work on a different stone while that's heating up. But what I'll usually do is actually just keep the dop pot on while I'm cabbing, because it's fairly common for something like that to happen and you'll need to reapply your dop wax. And here I'm just showing removing the 80 hex wheel on the end and putting the regular 80 back on to then kind of work as a smoothing wheel instead of your first aggressive wheel. This technique has worked well for me, starting with the real aggressive 80 hex, and then since my regular 80 had been worn out, now that's almost just like an in-between from the hex to the 220. that I just smooth things out, and it seems to work well for me. Also, here I am checking the balance of the wheel. So when you first put it on, you kind of want to let it spin for a second and see if it's wobbly at all. And sometimes you will need to spin it around on the mandrel a bit to kind of find a spot that it is the smoothest, and then retighten your screw, and you're ready to go. So I've replaced my water, and you can see it's steaming. I do like to heat up my water if it's cold in the basement. It's just nicer on your hands, and it doesn't stay hot for too long. And right now I'm just working on the girdle, smoothing that out on the 80 regular, and then I'll go to the 220 and smooth out the girdle before moving on to the dome. And that's just going to help ensure that you're not going to get chips on your girdle, since it's been smoothed out on a finer grit before finishing your shaping on the dome with the 80, and then moving that onto the 220 and through the rest of the wheels. And so here we have the girdle finished at 220, and now we're working back on the shaping of the dome on the 80 before we then just do the same process through all of the rest of the wheels, and just make sure we're working in a circular motion and not putting too much pressure into the wheel, as that's a good way to create deeper scratches that are hard to get out. So we're just doing the same motions through all 6 wheels up to the 3000 grit, and then I'll show you how I get the final polish. So after going up to the 3000 wheel, I finish on a felt pad with a Cerium Oxide that I spray on out of that little spray bottle. It's a mixture of powder and water to create a slurry, and then you just spray it directly on the pad. Keep your water geyser pointed on it so you keep it wet, and then just go through the same circular rotations on it. Try to use the whole wheel so you don't create divots and wear out the pad in certain areas. And this is a great final polish for agates and jaspers, and things like quartz and obsidian. There's a lot of materials that it doesn't work for, and you can finish those with tin oxide or higher grit diamond. But this works well for the majority of the stones that I do, as I focus on harder jaspers and agates. And here's the stone still on the dopstick after the Cerium final polish. And after this, I'm going to toss it in the freezer for 15 to 20 minutes, and it should pop right off. And here we have the final stone after it's off the dopstick, but before I finish the back. So I will still finish the back. You can see how I do that in my previous cabbing tutorial. This one was just on how to use your dopsticks effectively, but I hope you all learned something, and thanks so much for watching. See you next time.